What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another fantasy football video. Time to release the wide receiver rankings, and as always, for most things on this channel, it's geared slightly towards PPR scoring. This is the PPR rankings. However, if you'd like to know what the standard rankings are, we're not going to make another video on that. Just go to the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, link in the description box down below, and you can download for free the rankings to your computer. I actually recommend that you do that for this video if you're watching it a week or later from when it was uploaded. So this is going to be uploaded August 9th. I'm recording it August 7th. So there's going to be injuries. There's going to be training camp news. So rankings are going to change, and especially they're going to obviously be different in standard scoring. I'm going to talk about each player in this video, and I'm going to talk about how they change depending on your scoring system. But if you want to know our exact rankings, and this video has been recorded and uploaded a week before or greater, so you're watching this in late August, I would still watch the video to get my thoughts on the players, but I would download our rankings and follow along on those, I guess, instead of what I'm going to show you on the screen. Because I'm going to show you on the screen the premium rankings with the premium stuff blurred out. If you want access to that, go to the website and check that out. It's $20. You also get the 3 articles writing each week, the DFS lineups. I'm going to be giving you cash game lineups. I'm giving you tournament lineups, and also access to our private chat. So a lot of people have been taking advantage of that. Got a lot of good conversations going on in the chat, and that's going to extend throughout the entire season. So it's definitely beneficial to be inside of that. And some of you who have signed up for the premium rankings, you haven't accessed the chat yet. I've sent you an email, so I know that some of you don't have the exact same email for your PayPal and for the email you use, but check the email on your PayPal because you have access to the chat now. But this video is wide receiver rankings, and again, I just want to stress you should be downloading the rankings on the website, free or premium, whichever you've signed up for, and follow along on there. So without further ado, let's jump into these rankings. At number 1, it's fairly obvious. We have Antonio Brown, and I'm going to basically keep ranking Antonio Brown at number 1 until he proves that he's not worth number 1. There's really no case, and you see I have him in a tier ahead of Julio Jones and Odell, and I'm really not going to talk much about Antonio Brown. The one drawback to him isn't his health, it's Big Ben's health, but when you average 120 receptions, 1,578 yards, and 10.75 touchdowns over a 4-year stretch, and you do not post dud weeks, remember, Antonio Brown's Mr. Consistent. In his dud weeks, he's getting you double-digit PPR points. So he's super safe, super reliable, and has just as much upside as any other wide receiver, especially in PPR. He's number 1 in PPR and in standard, and I'm not concerned about Martavis will be reinstated, I truly believe. If he hasn't already when you're watching this, he's going to be reinstated by the league. I don't think he takes away from Antonio Brown's upside. I think he's going to be hyper involved in this offense, and he's just super safe. So I have him at number 1. I'm not going to talk any further on that point. Number 2 is Julio Jones, and I guess I'll throw you the rankings as well. So it's 1, 2, 3 for the big 3 running backs, and then it goes 4, 5, 6 for Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and Odell for like the overall rankings. And again, I only rank the top 2 rounds, and then everyone else I just say what their ranking is for the round overall. So like, is he a 4th round grade? Is he a 5th round grade? But I do rank the top like 22-ish players. So Julio Jones I have ahead of Odell, and that's in PPR. In standard scoring, it's flip-flopped. I do have Odell slightly ahead, and that's basically the only reason for that is the touchdowns. We can only give Julio a projection somewhere in the 5 to 8 range. You know, even when he had his monster season 2 years ago, he only had 8 touchdowns. He's just not hyper involved in the red zone. I mean, look at his 2015 numbers, and I mean, obviously you'd love this in fantasy. I mean, 136 receptions, 1,871 yards, but then only the 8 touchdowns. In 2012, he did have 10 touchdowns, but that seems to be his ceiling. He does have more injury risk than Odell does, but for me, it's that what we saw from him last year, number 2 in the league in receiving yards at a little over 1,400 yards on 14 games. I want to talk about the targets, because last season, I feel like if you had to tell me who is, or if I had to answer, who is the elite wide receiver who's being overlooked the most, I think it's Julio. For people to be putting him as close to AJ Green and Mike Evans as they are, I think is a mistake. Obviously, I have them ranked closely overall, But some people I have seen take AJ Green and Mike Evans ahead of Julio, and I want to remind you that their offense was very, very efficient last season, like historically efficient, and everyone's talking about regression. Everyone knows they're going to see natural regression. You don't have a season like that and then repeat it. I don't care about different offensive coordinators. I don't care about that aspect of it. What I'm talking about is natural regression. You do not be that efficient and then repeat it the next season, especially when it was a fluke. Like, Aaron Rodgers can be as good as he was last year because we've seen it before. Tom Brady can be as good as he's been in recent years because we've seen it before. But we haven't seen Matt Ryan do what he just did. And I don't believe it's going to happen again. I think they'll still be good, and I think they'll be a great team still. But they're going to see regression. And then you say, oh, well, I guess that means Julio's going to regress. No, that is not what it means. That means that the auxiliary players will regress. That means that Tevin Coleman is probably going to regress in the touchdown department. That means Freeman could see some regression, although I think that he's going to push ahead of Coleman a little bit more in the touch distribution. But it doesn't mean that Julio Jones is going to regress. Because let's say they're not winning by 3 scores by halftime this season. Maybe they have more competitive games. That means Julio's not going to be 16th in the league in targets. That's going off of Pro Football Focus numbers, which are slightly different than ESPN and NFL, because most sites view throwaways as a target, whereas Pro Football Focus doesn't. They don't view it as a target because it's not. It's just a throwaway. I don't know what he was overall. I think it was maybe 18th, but 16th in the league with 122 targets. Now, there were some guys in the 150, 160 range. What if Julio Jones gets more close to that? What if they're closer in games and they don't have the opportunity to just run the ball or just sit Julio late because maybe he's got a small injury, but they just want to keep him out of the game in the fourth quarter? What if that doesn't happen? And what if Julio pushes 150 targets? We're looking at a guy who could break the receiving yardage record, albeit on 8 to 10 touchdowns, but who cares? If he's at 1,900 or 2,000 receiving yards, am I predicting that? No, I'm not. But I'm going to say that he's going to put together at least as good as he did last year, probably better. If he can stay healthy, he will definitely break what he did last season. So I think that people are overlooking him. I have him 5th overall, ahead of Odell. Slight concern with Odell is the targets. I have in the premium rankings a link to the StatMuse page, but I'll post that as well in the description box because it's interesting to see. I filtered out, I want to say it was 8 or less targets. What has Odell done? And it's not that great. Like, he's been really good when he's heavily targeted. So when you bring in Brandon Marshall, now I don't know at this point what Sterling Shepard is dealing with this injury. I'm assuming that he's going to play at least part of the year. Like, I have no idea what the injury is. So obviously that is a factor. But as long as someone's out there, I still think the targets will be reduced. Like, it's not like we take all of Sterling Shepard's work and we make it 0 because someone's going to play the slot. Because Sterling Shepard was, I believe, number 1 most percentage-wise in the slot. Like, he is a slot receiver. That is what he is. So when you bring in Brandon Marshall, when you've got Shane Vereen was injured part of last season, when you bring in Shane Vereen, assuming a full workload for him, when you bring in Evan Ingram, the targets have to go away. Like, some of them have to go away. So there's a slight concern that he's not the Odell we've seen in the past, but I still think he's going to be at least a version of that. Maybe it's a slightly reduced version, but it's still, he's going to be Odell. He's going to be pretty good. So he's going to be top 5 if he stays healthy the whole year. That's why you take him 6th overall. So I have him 5th overall in standard, but then 6th overall in PPR. Kind of nitpicking at that point, but I want to nitpick because this is where you win and lose your league. If Odell has 90 for 1,210 touchdowns, but then Julio Jones breaks the receiving record, well, yeah, the nitpicking was worth it at that point because it's a different player. So that's why I did it there. But it's Antonio is clear-cut number 1 in that tier, and then Julio Jones and Odell make up a slightly lower tier. Then we jump into this next tier. So in this range, we've got AJ Green at 8th overall, Mike Evans 9th overall, Jordy Nelson 10th overall, and then a little bit of a dip, but still definitely in the same tier, is Michael Thomas at 15th overall. I feel as though I jinxed AJ Green last season. You guys heard I was all over drafting AJ Green. I know a lot of you drafted him because of that. I had him in a ton of leagues, and it was worth it until he got hurt. I mean, he was having a monster season before he got hurt. One thing I want to note that isn't being talked about a lot is that AJ Green and I guess all of the Bengals have the #1 easiest schedule in the league this season. I don't know exactly what that means for AJ Green. Obviously, it's got to benefit Joe Mixon because they should be winning more games, you'd think, if they have the easiest schedule, so they'll be able to run the rock late. But what it also tells me is that they're going to be able to score points. And who do they look for to score points? It's AJ Green. They're not going to look for John Ross in the red zone. They'll hit him on some deep balls, but they're not going to look at him in the red zone. So I think it benefits Eifert. It benefits AJ Green. And I don't see a case for taking any of these guys in this tier ahead of him. I think Mike Evans, just with the pieces they brought in, is going to see less targets overall. Whereas AJ Green's role is essentially the same. All they have now is someone to stretch the field. And I get that that's the same case for Mike Evans, but Mike Evans actually had a decent depth of target last season, so that's going to be taken away with Deshaun. They also brought in the rookie tight end, O.J. Howard, and although I don't believe that he's going to be heavily involved, I just think that when you bring pieces in, they're going to take away targets, and A.J. Green isn't as dependent upon a high target share. Like he doesn't need as many targets as Mike Evans needs to be productive. And I don't know if that made sense to everyone, but I feel as though on less targets, AJ Green is safer. Like if we reduce both of their targets, it's more concerning for me that Mike Evans has less targets because he's always been, when he's been an elite option, he's been like one of the most targeted receivers, whereas AJ Green doesn't need to be as targeted to be a monster. So obviously, like they're back to back. I still love both of them. But AJ Green is definitely, when you're at that pick, ahead of Mike Evans. I think it helps the quality of target for Mike Evans. I mean, having Deshaun, who's a very good receiver and a very good deep threat, on the field, like they didn't have anyone last season. So everyone was able to just focus only on Mike Evans. Now they can't. So that is a definite benefit for Evans. But also, they did try to run the ball a little bit later towards the end of last season and kind of ride. Their defense was helping them out a bit. So he just has more question marks, but I have them for almost an identical projection. So they're both very good players. It's just I really do believe AJ Green's a much better pick. Jordy Nelson is next on the list. Jordy Nelson does see a bump in standard because we can be so sure in his touchdown projection. It's not that he doesn't have a lot of receptions. It's that touchdowns are so important in standard, and we can be so confident that he's going to be in that 9 to 12 range that he's a very, very good standard play. I believe I would have him ranked ahead of Mike Evans in standard. I'm not exactly sure what I have. They're much closer. I do think Mike Evans is better in PPR, but in standard, it's honestly a coin flip, but I would probably take Jordy instead as of right now. I'm not concerned too much about the age. I listened to a Matt Kelly podcast, and he kind of had the same thought I did. And you think, like, he's coming off an injury. When you watched him, it was like, yeah, he's getting less separation. But he actually, in the second half of the season, was rated very highly in separation per route run. So, like, yards of separation per route run. And I guess that's why we don't do the eye test a lot and we rely on stats, because the eye test can fail us. And I just think that if we look at Larry Fitz, he was able to do it at 32, and obviously we think Brandon Marshall just imploded last season with injuries, but who was Brandon Marshall playing with for quarterback, and then who is Jordy playing with for quarterback? So even if Jordy does take another step back this season, not even another, if he takes a step back, because he didn't really last season, even if he takes a step back, he's still playing with Aaron Rodgers, and that warrants first round pick. Because if he stays healthy for 16 games, he's going to be a 1. And when you're so safe with that projection, he's worth a pick this high. So that rounds out the top 3 in this tier. And I throw Michael Thomas in this tier because I truly believe he is one of the next elite wide receivers, and he is not going to have a sophomore slump. So he's rated 7th overall, but 7th for wide receivers, but then 15th overall in PPR scoring. It's roughly the same in standard, but whenever there's a running back in standard scoring, rated closely to a wide receiver, I typically tend to lean towards the running back just because it's so much more valuable to hit on a top end running back in standard scoring. But in PPR, I mean, I'll tell you the projection we have for him is in the 90s for receptions. It's around 1,200 yards, and it's in that 8 to 11 touchdown range. So that's a similar projection to Jordy Nelson. So that's why he's honestly a great early second round pick. Why do we look at the quarterbacks? This is what we want. We got Big Ben, Matt Ryan. Obviously Eli Manning's not the ideal quarterback to be under, but Dalton's a fine quarterback. Winston's an up-and-coming quarterback. And then we got Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. Next is T.Y. Hilton. He's got Andrew Luck. You're looking for the top receiving threat on an elite quarterback. That's what people are early. You don't ever see the top receiving threat of an elite quarterback super late in the draft unless he's just a receiving threat, but not the top one. When you have the top receiving threat, Michael Thomas is the top receiving threat for Drew Brees in a very high-scoring team that's going to have a bad defense. How could you not want to take him in the second round? So I think he has a 0% chance of busting. If you watch him, he's an absolute monster. And what he was able to do in his rookie season is something you do not see very often. So love the pick there. Dynasty, you got to think a little bit about how much longer Drew Brees is playing and who the backup is. But this isn't a dynasty ranking. This is completely redraft. So love Michael Thomas in the early second round. So that's enough on him. Let's move on to this next tier. It's another 4-person tier. And I really like this range because there's so many opportunities for both value and rounding out your team early on. And so the person I haven't gotten the most is T.Y. Hilton. But value-wise, I just think Dez Bryant in standard scoring leagues going in the late second to, I have seen him go in the early third, but it's not that often. It's mostly the late second round in 12-team leagues. That just screams value to me. In a standard scoring league when the guy's got 18 touchdown upside. Doug Baldwin, when you can get him in the early third round. Amari Cooper has typically gone at the turn of the second and third round. I'll get to them after, but the take on T.Y. Hilton is that he's so dependent on Andrew Luck's health. If you told me Luck will be back playing 16 games, I love the pick. If you told me Luck's going to be on the pup, miss 6 weeks, I'm like, ooh, okay, maybe not the best pick. So I want to hear more, which we're not going to really hear too much in the next week or so, but at least before the majority of people draft in late August, I think we're going to hear more, but who really knows? I posted a poll in the private chat of T.Y. Hilton or Dez Bryant in PPR scoring. The majority chose T.Y., and I just think it's really close. In standard, you have to go Dez because of the touchdown projection. I don't care about the injury risk. At that point, when you're getting his upside, you just have to take it over T.Y., whose projection, I haven't projected 5 touchdowns, whereas I have Dez projected 12 touchdowns. So you see the disparity there. That's what, 42 points right there. And obviously it's just a projection, but it's not like the receptions are that much different. And the yardage is that much different, but the touchdowns are. So I think you have to take Dez over T.Y. in standard, but I'm leaning T.Y. right now unless we get news that Luck is going to miss significant time, because T.Y. is honestly a monster. He led the league in receiving yardage, and it's no one wants to talk about that. But they're both good picks. I think Dez is a better pick because you also can get him a little bit later. But 2 guys I've been getting a lot are Doug Baldwin and Amari Cooper. I have them ranked 10th and 11th, so still wide receiver 1s, rounding out this tier here. And I think Doug Baldwin is a perfect third-round pick if you can get him there. It's basically him and Crowell is who I'm targeting anywhere in the third. When I say anywhere, I mean at the turn, end of the third, obviously. But even the first pick in the third round of a 12-team league, I'm comfortable taking both Doug Baldwin and Crowell. So when I get picks anywhere in the third, those are the 2 guys I'm looking for. Obviously, Amari Cooper would be nice too. But Amari seems to be going a little bit ahead of both of those guys. Amari is better in PPR scoring than in standard because for some reason I mean, they'd rather use Seth Roberts in the red zone for some reason. I don't understand it. He has been a little bit unlucky. I mean, he's had touchdowns called back. He's gone out early right before the red zone. But I think he's like 2 or 3 for 20 in scoring touchdowns in the red zone. So off of 20 red zone targets, I think he only has like 2 or 3 touchdowns. So maybe, like we sit here and we say he's great, between the 20s. Why aren't they using him in the red zone? Maybe there's a reason. Maybe he's not getting open. Maybe in practice, I mean, Carr just doesn't trust him. Like, we're not there, so we can't know these things. But in standard scoring, with touchdowns being so important, I tend to just not draft Amari Cooper because, I mean, we saw Mike Evans have 3 touchdowns. You're going to tell me there's a chance that Amari doesn't get like 2 or 3 touchdowns this year, which would just murder his value. So in PPR, he's still safe because he's going to be over 80 receptions, probably closer to 90. So I think he's a good pick in PPR, but I still would rather have Doug Baldwin because I'm all over Doug Baldwin. I think that the injury for Russell Wilson last season, even with that, he still had a great year. And now you tell me that I'm assuming that Wilson's 100% ready to go. I think Wilson has a great year. I'm all over him as well. If he has a great year, he's got to throw to someone. And it's basically him and Jimmy Graham are the only 2 elite weapons I see on that offense. Obviously, CJ Prosise is going to get some out of the backfield. It's going to be a rotation between like Lockett and Paul Richardson and whoever else they want to throw in there. Certain weeks it's going to be one guy, certain weeks it's going to be the other. But it's going to be Doug Baldwin every week. So I think in PPR especially, he's going to be around 90 receptions. And we've seen him have, 14 touchdown upside. That was a bit of an aberration, and we're not going to project that. But he can score the ball. I think with the 32nd ranked offensive line, they're going to have to throw the ball. They're not going to have that many rushing lanes, especially if Lacey doesn't do that great. And Rawls isn't any good anyways. So I love Doug Baldwin as a pick. I think he's going to have a great year, and I think he deserves to be in the same tier of these guys. So now let's move on to the next tier. This one's a little bit longer, so I had to cut it into 2 parts, but I'll run through the whole tier here, then we'll talk about the guys. Starts off with Demaryius Thomas, then we got DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks, Golden Tate, Alshon Jeffrey, Sammy Watkins, Keenan Allen, and Allen Robinson. Starting it off with Demaryius Thomas, I think I told you guys he'd have the worst season of his career last season. He did, but the worst season that he had is 90 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So if we look at what he did last season as a baseline for what we can expect this season, in the quarterback situation, I'm assuming it's Simeon. I believe the reports are that Simeon has beaten Lynch every single day so far. So I'm expecting it to be Simeon. I don't think Paxton Lynch is ready. So if we look at what he did last year with Simeon, we'll take that. In the 3rd round, if you go, let's say you go running back heavy, so maybe you had the turn pick and you got something like Freeman Ajayi or Freeman DeMarco. I like that combo, Freeman DeMarco. If you're going to now have your 1 as Demaryius, I think that's fine because you've locked up running back and now you've got a guy who in a down year had 90 receptions in a PPR scoring format, and he's got touchdown upside. Do I think he has massive touchdown upside? No. He's probably going to be in the 5 to 8 range, but he's going to be around 90 receptions, around 1,000 to 1,100 yards, and we know this. I mean, he hasn't missed a game since 2011, so he's not injury prone. I just think he's a safe pick and one that you should be comfortable taking in the 3rd round, and you should be glad when he slips because he has been slipping sometimes. My pick that's very similar to him is DeAndre Hopkins. Like, both of these guys we've seen finish as top 5 options. And when I'm an upgrade from Brock Osweiler, obviously, anyone's an upgrade from Brock Osweiler. I don't care what you think about Watson, he's an upgrade. So, is he good? Honestly, I don't think so. But we're going to have to see. And he can't do any worse. 78 receptions, 954 yards, and 4 touchdowns. If you're going to tell me that's worst case scenario, again, in the 3rd round, I'll take it. Because he's similar to Hopkins. And he's got a very similar projection. We can project him in the 80s for receptions, around 1,000 to 1,100 yards, and around 5 to 8 touchdowns. Like, it's the exact same player, basically. They're both elite wide receivers. I really do think that Hopkins is a fantastic wide receiver. So, like, with Will Fuller, I don't know how long he's going to be out, but he just suffered an injury. I think it's a few months he'll be out. Who else are they going to throw to? I know Fedorowicz will be used in the red zone sometimes, but between the 20s, I mean, they don't use him that much. It's really short. Like, I think Fedorowicz is a perfectly fine option for you to take late in your drafts and PPR scoring and stuff, but I think Hopkins is a great pick in the 3rd round, and I've seen him fall as well. So I love the pick there as well. I don't believe he's ever missed a game, so there's no risk there. Brandon Cooks is a guy who I've yet to draft because I believe he's going in the 3rd, and I have him as 4th round grade, but I don't know. Like, Cooks is going to win you weeks, and he's someone I'm going to play a lot in DraftKings, in daily fantasy, because I want to see if we can predict the Cooks games, you know, when they've got slow cornerbacks. Remember, he's historically good against slow cornerbacks, or in situations we think that maybe he'll be matched up on a linebacker if we can get some of those formations, just because we have so many weapons on the Patriots. But he's going to be very, very frustrating to own. I don't like taking, because you probably have to take him in the 3rd round. I don't like taking a guy like that because he's going to have weeks where he goes like 2 for 20. And all the people around him, I kind of feel, or at least ahead of him, I feel more confident that their dud weeks aren't going to be as bad and that their upside is the same to where I'd rather take them. So this is the highest. I cannot see myself moving him any higher than he's at right now at 14th. He's a fine pick, but someone that I don't believe I've made. I don't think I've picked him yet in a mock draft, but I will be playing him in daily fantasy because he's got, 5 for 150 and 2 touchdown upside every week. It's just we have no idea when those are going to come, and obviously we can't expect that every week from anyone, but massive upside, just a really low floor, so not someone I'm entirely targeting. Golden Tate is someone I'm targeting. Honestly, like, if you gave me the choice between Cooks and Tate, it's a really tough decision for me. And with Tate going like a round later, makes the decision a lot easier. He's played 95 of the last 96 games. Bolden's gone, so we can give him a slight bump in touchdown projection. I think some of that goes to Ebron, who was very unlucky in the touchdown department. He'll see positive regression. But I think Golden Tate will too. The main concern is that it was like the tale of two halves, weeks 1 through 8. 38 receptions, 434 yards, and 1 touchdown. Weeks 9 through 17, which includes the Week 10 bye. So this was splitting it exactly in half. 53 receptions, 643, and 3 touchdowns. So when you extrapolate the second half out for a full year, it's fantastic. 106 receptions, a little under 1,300 yards, and 6 touchdowns. It's which one do we get? I tend to believe that we're going to see second half Golden Tate, and that he's a very, very safe option. And in the 4th round, where I've typically locked up 2 stud running backs and then a really nice wide receiver I just like having him as my wide receiver 2 to be super safe, super confident in him, and honestly, he's got some great upside as well. So I love Golden Tate as a pick. Last person on this page, I guess, for you guys is Alshon, who I've drafted in exactly 0 mock drafts. It's the injuries, and he's already suffered 1. It wasn't lower body. Thank God for Alshon owners, because if he suffers a hamstring injury in camp, there's 0 chance I draft him. Honestly, there's 0 chance anyways. But I get the upside with him playing with a developing quarterback in Wentz, and I think Wentz is a good quarterback. He's going to be the focal point of the passing game. I can't do it. 2012 torn meniscus, fractured hand, pulled hamstring. 2014 pulled hamstring. 2015 pulled hamstring. Pulled hamstring again in 2015. Oh, and 2016 he was nursing a sore hamstring. And then he was suspended for the PEDs. But if he gets another hamstring injury, which how can we say he's not going to? I just don't like it. I don't think that the upside makes up for the floor that he has when you look at everyone around him. Sammy Watkins is next on this list, and I'm thinking of moving Sammy ahead of him just because, you look at them, who has more upside? Well, it's Sammy. Who has more injury risk? It's Sammy, but they're both an injury risk, so I don't think you can say that one is greater than or less than the other in the injury risk. They're so similar that, I don't know. I won't be drafting any Alshon Jeffrey, but I have drafted some Sammy Watkins. Let's put it that. So let's just talk about Sammy Watkins a little bit and the upside that he does have, because if you could say that he's going to play all 16 games, Tyrod's going to play all 16 games, neither of them are going to be like limited, like none of them has a lower body injury where they're like gimping around the field and it's just a decoy, full 16 games healthy, I'd say he's got a decent chance of being top 5. Now, he's better in standard because he's never going to be a guy that gets like 90 receptions, but he's going to be a guy that has great yardage upside and good touchdown upside. So better playing standard than PPR, but I honestly think he's a good pick because of where he's going. Like if he was going in the second round, I'd say no, too much risk. If he was going early in the third round, I'd say no, too much risk. But I've seen him go in the 4th round of 12-team leagues, which at that point, when all of the guys going in this range, like who has more upside than Sammy Watkins? Look at the next guy on this list, Keenan Allen. You could say, well, he has a lot of upside too, but he's got the exact same injury risk as Sammy Watkins does. I'm not going to say that Keenan Allen's injury prone, because, the dude, he lacerate his spleen or something? His kidney. I think, wasn't it Luck the spleen? Kidney. But, the injuries that Keenan Allen sustained, I get, yeah, when a guy goes down that much, he's an injury risk, but I'm not going to say that he's injury prone. I'm not going to say either of them are injury prone, but they're both the exact same injury risk. Exact same. But Keenan Allen does not have the same upside as Sammy Watkins. I don't believe Keenan Allen can finish top 5, even if he has a great year, just because there's so many weapons on that team. But look at Watkins. he's got McCoy. Now, I believe they just brought in Anquan Bolden. But are you going to tell me Anquan Bolden's, going to get, 1,000 plus and, 10 touchdowns? No. He's going to take some touchdowns in the red zone away. But he's honestly going to take defenses away a little bit. I just think Sammy Watkins has such upside that in the 4th round, you've got to take that. Because if he hits, and you hit on running back early, you've already made the playoffs and you're 4 rounds in. And we don't even know what you're going to hit on in these middle rounds. So I love Sammy Watkins' pick. I don't typically take Keenan Allen. I think you can only really take him in a PPR league. I don't think touchdowns are going to be there. He's fine, I guess. I just think the upside doesn't make up for the risk as much with him. So that's why I've held off a little bit. But if he's going in the 4th round, he's fine. He's a fine pick. Allen Robinson's another guy I'm fine with, better in standard than PPR, but I'm just fine with it. I'm not pumped to get him. And he's typically going late 3rd, early 4th, somewhere around there, around the turn. He's an elite wide receiver, don't get me wrong, but Blake Bortles is just so bad. And they brought in Fournette to pound the rock, and they improved their defense because they want to be kind of like a version of the Seahawks that we've seen in recent years, where it's just they want a great defense, pound the rock, slow down the game, and just make Blake Bortles have as little part of that offense as possible. And that obviously hurts Allen Robinson, who had a very fluky touchdown year. He was very lucky. And we saw him regress towards the mean last season. He went below the mean. I think he improves this year, but not enough to warrant a 3rd round pick, really, in my eyes. A late 3rd is fine, but I'm not touching him in the early 3rd round. I think there's much better options at that point because I don't think he'll ever return, at least while Blake Bortles is quarterback, to that 2015 season. Let's move on to this next tier. Again, it's a little bit bigger than I can fit on the screen, so I'll run through it first quickly. Terrell Pryor, Devonta Adams, Jarvis Landry, Michael Crabtree, Stefon Diggs, Willie Snead, Emmanuel Sanders, Jamison Crowder, Larry Fitz, and Tyreek Hill. So starting it off with Terrell Pryor, I don't believe he deserves to be in that green tier above. You guys saw that I made the video expecting a breakout for him, and I still do, but he's going. I have seen him drafted early 3rd, real early 3rd, and I believe there was one mock I was in, he went in the late 2nd round. And people need to realize that if you're taking him that high, you've got to be projecting, 35 touchdowns with 5,500 passing yards for Kirk Cousins? Because that's the only way Pryor gets there. I guess you're assuming that Jordan Reed plays 0 games and that Crowder's out for some time with this hamstring injury, and that Doxson doesn't develop at all. Because if Reed's healthy, and if Doxson's on the field more than 2 plays, what he was last year, or at least 2 receptions, and if Crowder comes back from his hamstring injury and is the most heavily targeted player on this offense, which I think he will be, then you can't project Pryor to finish as a high-end 2, which is where he's been going in drafts, is like a high-end 2, maybe even a late 1. Like, he has upside, but not as much upside as some people are making it out to be. I think he's great. I think that if you can get over 1,000 yards on the Browns, then you're a pretty good receiver, and he's still learning the position, and the tape checks out on him. But I think he's more of a 4th-round pick. I have him as a 5th-round grade here, but I think I'm going to change that to a 4th-round grade. He's fine late 4th, but I just think that there's so many guys that I have projected nearly identical to him that are going around 2 rounds, even 3 rounds later, that I'd rather just either take whichever running back has fallen to me at this point, or just take a different option than him, because I think that I can get other players who have similar upside and similar floors and are just overall similar players later. So let's talk about some of those players. One's Davante Adams. There's 2 schools of thought with Davante Adams. One is that he sees natural regression, which he probably will. But the other is that Aaron Rodgers is quarterback. And don't give me this, the Randall Cobb is going to be like the number 2 or something. Like, Randall Cobb is going to play in the slot, and Randall Cobb's going to be good. But Randall Cobb is not a 2, and Davante Adams is going to catch touchdowns because Aaron Rodgers is his quarterback. And I get that Ty Montgomery and Jamal Williams might take some, more than they ran for last year, but I just feel like he's so safe to project to 8 to 12 touchdowns that when you're in this range, if someone gets 10 touchdowns, they're worth a pick in the 5th round. And that's what the projection is on him. Around 10 touchdowns, around 1,000 yards, around 70 receptions. And is he a good receiver? Not really. He drops a ton of balls, but he's fine. And all you have to do is be fine in the number 2 in that offense. And I don't know. I think that he's overlooked a good amount, and he's a pretty similar pick to Terrell Pryor. So I'm comfortable taking him, obviously better in standard scoring formats. Jarvis is someone I was all over, and now I've tempered and then have no idea what to do, because it's like the progression has gone from I love this pick to why aren't they giving him a contract, maybe they don't value him, to okay, Tannehill's out. Now we have no idea, because when a new quarterback comes in, you don't know who their favorite target's going to be. I mean, there's a chance that, like, Kenny Stills is Cutler's favorite target, you know? Could be Devonta Parker. Could be Jarvis Landry, but we just don't know. So I want to see it in preseason, and I want him to get his contract. If he doesn't get a contract, and I've stated this before, he doesn't get a contract before the season starts, and Cutler is favoring other receivers, I'm tanking him in the rankings. So I feel like he's a little bit tanked right now, going at 22 in my rankings, but I don't know. I want to see the preseason, and he's someone that I'm pumping the brakes on a little bit. Like, you just look at his history, like rookie year, 84 receptions, 758 yards, 5 touchdowns. Second year, 110 receptions, 1157, 4 touchdowns. Third year, 94 receptions, 1136, 4 touchdowns. I get it. He's going to be in the 4 to 5 touchdown range. But if you're going to give me 90-plus receptions, that's a viable pick. It's the same thing as like a Golden Tate. It's a viable pick at 22. So I like the pick if he continues what he's been doing, but I want to see it in preseason. So I want to see the connection a little bit, and I want to hear some reports from beat writers on that connection. But right now, I mean, Cutler hasn't even practiced with him yet as of recording this, so we'll see what happens with that situation. We'll update the rankings accordingly. Crabtree is a guy that I've kind of moved around the like 20 to 25, 26 range. I have him right now at 23. I think that's a good spot for him. I think Amari Cooper takes that next step this season over him, But then once they get to the red zone, it's going to be Crabtree. So we can give him a good touchdown projection. He doesn't really have much injury concern. He's got a little bit, but nothing major. He's just safe. I mean, he's going to be a little under 1,000 probably, in that 7 to 10 touchdown range. So I think he's a fine pick. One that gets overlooked a lot. Like you look in last season, and if you play DraftKings, you realize this, they were like the same price for a lot of the year. And it was like, I don't even know who I want. Do I want Crabtree or do I want Amari Cooper? So they probably should be closer than they are in rankings if we're going to look at them having the same season as last year. But I think that the gap grows just a little bit more. But both of them are perfectly fine picks. And again, Crabtree's better in standard scoring than in PPR scoring. Moving further down this tier, we hit the range of guys that you guys know I love. And this bunch right here has been on a ton of my teams. And I'm probably higher than most on them. 24, we've got Diggs. 25, Snead. 26, Emmanuel. And then 27, Jamison Crowder. All 5th round grades. And you've heard me say, if you can grab 2 of these guys, typically I've said Diggs, Snead, Crowder. If you can grab 2 of them in the 5th and 6th round of a 12-team PPR league, 12-team PPR league, grab 2 of those guys. I think that's a steal and just going to be a rock-solid base for your team, especially if you implement the drafting strategy that I've typically been using, which is grabbing 2 running backs you feel very confident in the first 3 rounds. So really, like, I'd want to start off a draft with some sort of combination of maybe like Devonta Freeman with Michael Thomas and Crowell. So that's 2 of the running backs. Whoever I feel is the best value in the 4th round. And then 5th and 6th getting like Diggs, Snead, or maybe Snead, Crowder, or just some sort of combination there. That's what I've been trying to do. And I think that's basically the key to winning this year, is locking up these middle round picks that have typically a lower success rate, but I feel so confident in these guys that if you hit on those with hitting on the early picks, it doesn't matter as much late, so you can take shots late and just hope that you hit the lottery there, and that'll win you your championship. That's how I've been approaching the strategy. But you look at Diggs, and it's basically a tale of injuries, but he's only 23. You know, he was a very, very young rookie. So going into, I believe, his 3rd year now, even missing 3 games, he had 84 receptions, 903 and 3 touchdowns. He's a much better play in PPR. The Vikings run a very short passing game. It worked for him last year. I mean, Bradford set the record for completion percentage. Not that means anything, but it means that he's going to catch a lot of balls. Like, if you have a short passing game, that means that drives have more receptions. Like, if you have a longer passing game and you score a touchdown, maybe it only came on 5 or 6 receptions. If you have a short passing game, it may have came on 10. It was the same yardage, but if Diggs can get 4 receptions in a drive, that's huge in PPR. And I think that the touchdown projection is going to be low, but it's going to be fine to where if he's at near 90 to 100 receptions, he's going to be a great pick in the 5th round. So I love him. I love Snead just because Cooks is gone, so he's a 3rd-year receiver as well. He's graded out very well each of the past 2 seasons, and it's not like Michael Thomas is going to be like wide open every play and they're just going to feed him. I mean, defenses have got to know now that they've got to cover this guy. So being the number 2 in a Drew Brees offense is great. They're going to be playing 8 games in the Superdome, which is definitely something you want. And I just think, again, he was going way too late, but now he's going around the 5th round, and I'm perfectly comfortable spending a 5th round pick on Willie Snead. I think the upside's there. He doesn't get hurt very much. I don't think there's much risk with this pick, and that's what I want. I want to mitigate my risk in these middle rounds and pick guys that I'm very comfortable with. Another guy that I'm very comfortable with is Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, 79 of the past 80 games he has played in. Even when, you remember that hit, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, the dude like died. I mean, he got absolutely annihilated. Comes right back, and he's fine. So he's going to be out there. He's had 3 consecutive years of 75 receptions, over 1,000, and 5 or more touchdowns. He's just safe. He's a guy that every year, it seems, just goes under the radar. But then again, when you play daily, he's expensive because he's good. And he's going to get you points, and he has upside a lot of weeks. You saw it at the end of last season what his upside was. So another year with, I believe it's Simeon, maybe another year of him building chemistry. Someone posted in the chat, what's the difference between Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders? It's not much, to be completely honest with you. So should they be going 2 rounds apart? Probably not. It should probably only be a 1-round difference. Obviously, I think Demaryius should be higher, especially in PPR, given that he does have more touchdown upside, but he is going to catch more passes more than likely. But I don't think it should be that far apart. So I like my ranking here at 26. And then Jamison Crowder coming in one after. I love Jamison Crowder as long as we get that he's a full go from this hamstring injury, because he did suffer one, and as of recording this, I don't believe there's any more news. I'm not sure if he's practicing, but there's no more news as to what his state is on the injury. I never like drafting players that have hamstring injuries going into the year, but if he comes back, he's fully practicing, and then he plays in preseason games, I'm still going to love him, because I think that Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback and that he's going to look his way a ton. 237 targets have been abandoned with Deshaun and Garcon leaving. Obviously, Terrell Pryor's going to take some of those, and if they get a full season out of Reed, I guess he'll take some, but let's be honest, that's not going to happen. And imagine a world where Reed misses a large portion or all of the year. It's going to just be the Jamison Crowder show. So I love him in the middle rounds. Love all those guys in the middle rounds. Rounding out this tier are guys that I've had on a lot less teams because they're actually going before the guys I just talked about, and I have them ranked after. So it means I'll probably have 0% of. It's Larry Fitz and Tyreek Hill. Larry Fitz is fine. I get it. I get why you want to draft him better in PPR, and then Hill's better in standard. I have him still as a 5th round grade, and I'm fine when you guys show me teams and they're on him. I think that Larry Fitz takes a small step back this year. I think that his upside is good. Obviously, he's got the 100 reception upside, definitely. I just don't think we're going to see a monster year out of him. He doesn't get hurt, so he's going to be out there. But for me to project a increased volume for John Brown, I think John Brown's going to have a good year. I think J.J. Nelson can have a good year as well. That means we're going to take away from Fitz. So I think he's a fine pick, just one that I don't typically make, especially in standard. Tyreek Hill is one that I like him. I think he's going to be great, but I think he's going way too early. I see him go in the 3rd round, and that's just, there's way too much risk to go there. We haven't seen it for a full year, and I understand that he's probably going to do it again. Not the touchdowns, but he's going to be heavily involved, and they're going to need to feed him because they really don't have another weapon besides him for wide receivers, that is. Obviously, they have Kelsey, but Alex Smith, there's just so many limitations with him. There were so many times that Tyreek Hill was just wide open deep for a 50, 60-yard touchdown, and Smith would either look at him and then look away or just not even look. And I don't get it. He makes bad throws. I don't think Smith's that good of a quarterback, and that's a limitation on Hill. So I have him ranked 29th. I think that's around where people are ranking him. I don't actually know. I don't look at too many of other people's rankings, but I think that's a very fair ranking for that. He's going to see natural touchdown regression, and that he's not a guy that is going to be at 1,400 yards. I don't think any of this guys in this range will be, but when you take the risk of, we see Mike Evans gets 12 touchdowns, okay, then he goes to 3. And if you had to project Tyreek Hill or Mike Evans for more touchdowns, it's obviously Mike Evans. So anyone can go down to 2 or 3 touchdowns, and with that, such a large portion of Hill's points was touchdowns, and they've said he's not going to get those punt return and kick return touchdowns because he's not going to do that anymore. It's just limiting his upside, and I get if you want to take him in the 5th round, but I'm taking the guys ahead of him in the 5th round, so he'll be on probably 0 of my teams. Someone that is going to be on a lot of my teams is Pierre Garcon. Much better play in PPR than in standard scoring, but he's going to be the guy in that offense. They're going to run, for all the people who think that Carlos Hyde is going to get cut or something, stop it, because he's not going to get cut. He's going to be the guy. And honestly, I think Joe Williams, people think he's a passing down guy. Joe Williams can't catch. So I don't really know who the 3rd down back is going to be. It might even be Carlos Hyde if he can stay healthy. But Carlos Hyde is going to take a decent amount of the offense, but then where's the rest going? It's going to Pierre Garçon. I mean, he might be top 10 in targets for all we know going into the season, but I think that Brian Hoyer is a very underrated quarterback. And actually, I want to bring this up as well. In a previous video that I did, I said that they're playing at Chiefs. That's actually the preseason. You guys pointed out in the comment section. I read the sheet wrong. Week 1, they're playing at home against the Panthers. Now, I don't know how many of you guys play DFS. I know you guys hear me mention it a lot. I will 100%, obviously factoring in price. I don't know what the price is going to be. But I have a feeling Pierre Garçon is not going to be super expensive. And I guarantee you Brian Hoyer is not going to be very expensive at all. And with me thinking Hoyer's an underrated quarterback and thinking that Garçon's going to be peppered with targets, I will definitely have some exposure to a Brian Hoyer, Pierre Garçon stack, because that's going to allow me to play some stud running backs, some other upside receivers, and I think that's going to be probably my favorite stack. Obviously, I don't know what the pricing is. I can't wait till they release it. I don't know when they're going to. Maybe it won't be till the end of the 4th preseason week. But I really hope they release it earlier than that, because I want to see how my teams come out with a Brian Hoyer, Pierre Garçon stack. It's going to be definitely unconventional, but that's what I like to do in tournaments. So we'll see if we can hit on that one. But I think even for the full season, not just looking at 1 week, I really think he can be a 2. He can be a great 2 for you. Going in the 7th round right now, I think I have him a 6th round grade. I think that's roughly where he's going. But he's someone that I'm definitely targeting. Because if you can lock up your running backs early and then get Diggs, Snead, Garçon, because it's probably not going to happen where you get Diggs, Snead, Crowder. They're kind of going in like the similar range. But if you can throw Garçon into that, and actually you can throw Jeremy Maclin, who's in the next tier, into that, I think you're building yourself a great team in PPR. Julian Edelman, I probably have, he's at 31. I probably have him lower than anyone else in the industry. I'm really not sure. Which is weird coming from a Patriots fan, but I saw him decline last season, and I see more decline this year. He's entirely volume-based. Last season, 98 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's not going to have 98 receptions again. Gronk's back. Cooks was brought in. They want to run the ball. They've already got receiving weapons out of the backfield. Malcolm Mitchell's going to progress. I don't know if he can stay healthy, but he's at least going to progress a little bit. They have other options in Hogan. He had a 61% catch rate, was 49th in the league. 5% drop rate, was 41st in the league. Had a low production premium. He's actually 47th in the league. No, he's 94th in the league. Sorry, 94th in production premium. 80th in the league in fantasy points per target. Like he outscored the projection on Fantasy Pros 4 out of 16 weeks. Like he's just, I don't know. We all think Julian Edelman safe PPR play. Jarvis Landry safe PPR play, but I just can't do it with Edelman. He's going too early, and he's also he's suffered injuries, so it's not like he's not injury prone or anything. So I'd rather take Pierre Garçon over him, and Pierre Garçon's going definitely later than he is. So I won't have any Julian Edelman on my teams this year. Brandon Marshall, maybe I'll have some of. I want to see the Sterling Shepard news. I don't know at this point what the timetable of his recovery is. He's 33 now. We typically see a decline at 32, which we saw last season. That's what I pointed out with Jordy. But I think that he's had some really bad quarterback play, and now he's got okay quarterback play. Like Eli Manning, I'm not going to say he's a good quarterback, a great quarterback, but he's fine, and he's better than he's had in recent years. So with a lot of coverage going on Odell, I think that's going to open things up for Marshall, and he's going to be using the red zone. So this is a fine spot to take him in the 6th round. Not someone I'm targeting, but someone that if he falls to me, I'll take him. But he hasn't really been falling to me in a position that I like, so I have really not going to have very much exposure to him. But that rounds out this tier. On to the next one, and we're going to start it off with Jeremy Maclin. And this is actually a tier that I'm heavily targeting, except for Martavis Bryant, just because he's going too early for me. But this is a tier that I have been getting a ton of. And it's typically as my 4th to 5th wide receivers. And I'll talk about one of them as a 5th wide receiver, why that's just preposterous. But Jeremy Maclin, if you can get him as your 4, I think that's great. Super sleeper this year, although he's been climbing a little bit in drafts. But he's going to take over the slot. I'm assuming, at least. They've talked about it. I think he's going to. And the slot receiver for Baltimore has been a great option. I mean, Maclin, he's played well over the slot. He converted to it. He didn't always play it, but I believe it was like 4 years ago. Somewhere around there, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, he converted to the slot. And now since 2014, he's at the 4th most receiving touchdowns from that position. You know they're going to air it out in Baltimore. I mean, especially with Dixon going down. Now all they have is Terrence West and Danny Woodhead, and Woodhead's not going to really get many carries. It's going to be more receiving yards out of the backfield. He's going to take some touchdowns because he's historically been used in the red zone, but they're going to still be top 3 in pass attempts, and that definitely benefits Maclin. So I love Maclin as a pick. He tore his groin last season. That's why he was so bad, but he's been good leading up to that. So there's no reason, if he stays healthy, why he can't cover a 7th round grade. Another guy I have ranked in the 7th round is Martavis Bryant, and I'm going to talk about him and Tyrell Williams because literally they're like the same pick. They're big, fast receiving threats on offenses that are going to throw the ball a lot, but the only difference is that Tyrell Williams is probably going to have more targets. Bryant's probably going to have he has a higher touchdown projection. He'll probably have more touchdowns, but he's going like 3 rounds ahead of Tyrell, and they're not even that different of picks. I mean, I had Tyrell Williams ranked decently highly even before this Mike Williams news because I didn't think Mike Williams was all that good. I didn't think he was going to come in here and change much. So now with him being potentially completely out, I guess we don't know at this point, but I think Tyrell Williams is the absolute 100% steal of the draft. You can get him in like the 10th round. I take him typically in the 9th, but I'm fine taking him in the 8th. If I have to, if the ADPs rise and I take him in the 8th round, I'm going to take it. And if it rises to the 7th, I'm still going to think about taking it because I think he's an absolutely great pick. Not much risk. They're going to score a lot of points, and they look to him in the red zone. So, phenomenal. I think it's a phenomenal pick right now. Steal of the draft. Going one spot ahead of him is Decker, wide receiver 35. He's fine. I haven't taken him in a ton of drafts just because his ADP has risen a lot. The case for him is that Mariota was so efficient in the red zone and historically has been so efficient there. With Decker being one of the best red zone threats, you've got to think his touchdowns are going to be up there. My take is just that when Corey Davis returns from this injury, I believe he was still going to be the guy. So if he comes back fine, I think they're going to try and make him the guy, which would limit Decker's upside. Like you say, he's just a 2. Yeah, but that's a team that's going to run it a ton. I mean, they're going to have so many rush attempts. So that's going to limit Decker's upside a little bit. So I like the range you have him here. It's kind of where he's going, 7th round, so he's fine pick right now. Better in standard than in PPR, but I think he's a fine pick, just not a fantastic pick like Tyrell Williams is. Moving on to the rest of this tier, and I'm thinking about making this an entirely new tier. I haven't decided yet, but I think I'm going to. We've got Kenny Britt, Calvin Benjamin, Deshaun Jackson, Dante Moncrief. I think I am going to make that an entirely new tier. Kenny Britt has been flying under the radar a little bit as of right now. You know, if the guy can get what he did last year with the Rams, I know he moved to the Browns, and you're like, why is he moving from the Rams to the Browns? But, I mean, they're going to be down a ton. So he was a first-round pick. He's a great receiving threat. So I like him as a pick. I think he's going to post slightly reduced from Terrell Pryor numbers overall, but that's going to be completely viable. So I think he's a good pick, that like 9th, 10th round range. Honestly, I think more 9th round you can take Kenny Britt. Calvin Benjamin, I got a 10th round grade along with Deshaun and Dante Moncrief. I think there is a small gap with Kenny Britt, so maybe I'll just bump Kenny Britt up into the tier with the guys above him. That's what I'm going to do. So Kenny Britt will be in the tier of the 4 people above him, and then there's going to be another tier with Benjamin, Deshaun, and Moncrief. All of those guys are better in standard than in PPR scoring. Benjamin, the only reason I have him ranked this high, I don't think he's all that good, but he's going to be used in the red zone, so if he catches 8 to 10 touchdowns, he's going to be worth a pick in the 10th round easy. So I think he's a fine pick late because he is going pretty late. I think that the future for him isn't as bright as we once thought it was because I don't believe he is all that good, and I think Devin Funchess can push him for that #1 role. Not this year, most likely, but Dynasty Leagues, Funchess is a good guy to have. Also, I'd take him late in redraft. I'll talk about him when we get to him briefly, but I don't think Benjamin's all that good. That's what I'll say, and I don't typically like drafting players I don't think are all that good, so I probably won't have him in any leagues. Deshaun's a guy I'll have a little of. I think sometimes he goes a little bit too high in PPR because he's not going to be like super heavily targeted, but he's still a great receiver and he's a great deep threat. And you know Winston will chuck the ball to him a few times. He's going to be kind of like Cooks in that we don't know when the weeks are coming, but I think he's going to be a fine option. And then Moncrief's also a fine option, but he's entirely contingent upon Andrew Luck's health. If Luck plays 16, Moncrief will smash this projection or this ranking. If Luck is out for a significant amount of time, then Hackenberg seems to hate Moncrief, in which case he's going to underperform and he'll probably be on free agency. There's going to be natural regression, honestly, with him. Like, I know he's a touchdown monster. 12.7% of his career receptions are touchdowns, but that's like it. That's like all he does is catch touchdowns. And I get that, well, all he does is catch touchdowns. Like, that's great. But if that's all you're relying on and then he gets unlucky, like, even if he's just doesn't get worse, he just gets unlucky with touchdowns, well, now you have nothing. And in the weeks where he doesn't score a touchdown, it's kind of brutal. So I don't typically draft Moncrief in anything other than standard, and even then, I just honestly tend not to. Next here we have Cameron Meredith, Randall Cobb, John Brown, Devonta Parker, Marvin Jones, Adam Thielen, and Cole Beasley. This is basically the end of draftable players in my eyes in 12-team formats that have like a normal sized bench, like around like a 6-person bench. Because of how I construct my lineups, typically I don't draft anyone who's further than this range. Sometimes I have to, but typically those later picks are running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks, and I'm basically wrapped up my wide receivers in the middle to mid-late rounds. But this is the end of the range where I typically draft them. Meredith's good just because his team's going to be behind a ton, and he's the #1. Like, I know that Kevin White's there, but there's a chance Kevin White's a stud, but it's a very small chance. And Kevin White's not a bad pick late because he's going for free in like the 15th round, and there's a chance that he's really good, but the odds are he's going to stink, and Meredith's going to be the guy garnishing all the receptions. So Meredith's a good pick. I like Randall Cobb as a pick as long as he falls. I don't really know where he's going, but 10th round's like a fine spot to take him. He's like fine, but not a guy that I think has like insane upside unless he gets really lucky in touchdowns. But if I'm projecting a decent amount of touchdowns for Devonta Parker and Jordy, then how many can I really project for Randall Cobb? So I think he's going to be fine in this range. He'll probably end up better than this. So I have him ranked 42nd. He'll probably end up in like the 30s, but I'm just not looking for that here. John Brown, I'll probably have more of John Brown than Randall Cobb, and I might move him ahead of him in the rankings. I'm not sure yet. I'm thinking that Brown bounces back. And at the ADP, like, how can he not outperform this ADP? You know, it was 2015 when he had 65 receptions, over 1,000, and 7 touchdowns. And then he had a down year. And we know why. It was from the sickle cell, and he says it's behind him. Is it? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But if doctors say it is, then I'm going to believe them. Could it come back? Sure. I have absolutely no idea, to be honest. But if he's fully healthy, and the reports from camp are that he's doing really well, then he's going to be a great pick. And will he take over Larry Fitz? No, but I think he's going to be a really good pick. I think he's going to return to around that 2015 numbers, which at this range is just great. Devonta Parker's next. He's been frustrating to own because we've seen the potential in like random weeks, but he has never put it together for a full season. He's ranked this high because of the unknown. and ranked as low because of the unknown. I mean, we don't know. He could be a dud. He could be a great pick. I tend to think he's going to be like fine, to be completely honest. I don't think he's going to like break out into this monster that he was drafted to be. But who knows? Maybe Jay Cutler peppers him with targets because he's the big receiver on that team. And maybe he does great. Maybe he actually tries, because in recent years it doesn't seem like he's trying all that hard. But he's a fine pick with some upside. Marvin Jones is another solid pick with some upsides. I mean, we saw what he was last year before he suffered a few injuries, and none of the injuries came out. But you've got to think he had to have been injured. He was one. What wasn't he like wide receiver 1 until like week 4? And now he's going as in like the 50 range. So I have him 45th. I think that's perfectly fine range, because who's really pushing him? It's Golden Tate, but they don't play the same role. So if Stafford has a great year, then it's Marvin Jones who's gonna be the beneficiary of that year. So I think Marvin Jones is a good pick here. Adam Thielen I like as well. He was graded actually very highly from Pro Football Focus last season. Some of it contributed to the health of Diggs. When Diggs was limited, Thielen had some nice weeks. But we saw monster upside was at week 16. I want to say it was week 16 where he had that insane like 200-yard multiple touchdown week. That kind of skewed his numbers a little bit. But again, he's another guy that's going really late, who's going to be involved in the offense, and who is probably going to beat their projection, just doesn't have super high upside, which is why I put him here, because I want upside late. So he's another fine pick. Cole Beasley's overlooked a lot. I have him higher than consensus because I think he benefits from that difficult schedule. And you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Listen, they were ahead a lot last year, and they were able to pound the rock. So now you say they're probably not going to be ahead nearly as much as they were last year, but also that they play a lot of tough cornerback matchups for the 1. So Dez has a lot of tough matchups. But Cole Beasley isn't the 1. He's the slot guy. And he's graded out phenomenally well in the slot over the past few years. So when he finishes wide receiver 33, and we're saying he's probably going to slightly improve upon that, going in the 50s, I mean, he's probably going to finish as like wide receiver 28 to 30, like somewhere in that range. That's a guy I'll take in the 12th round, because he's got some upside if he gets lucky in the touchdown department. But he's in a position, the slot position, which has seen growth over recent years. Dak Prescott has seen growth. I think he's a good pick. And you might be a little confused, like, well, you said all these other guys were fine. They're going a decent amount ahead of Cole Beasley. Like, Cole Beasley you can get in like the 13th round. And if he's a guy that's going to get you in PPR like 12 every week, then I'll take it. Because if someone duds, if someone gets hurt, if someone has a super hard matchup, if someone's on bye, I know I can plug Cole Beasley in there to get me some points. So I'll use him sometimes in DFS as well. He doesn't have massive upside, which is why he's more like a cash game play in DFS. But I really do think that he's a good pick late, because he's going so late. Another guy that was a solid pick was Quincy Enunwa. But he just suffered another neck injury, and neck injuries are like kind of tough to deal with, and he's not going to have a ton of touchdowns. So he's another guy that's like fine to take late. If he comes back from this neck injury, I'll bump him up a little bit, but I don't know. I don't really know what to think of Quincy, because I'm pretty sure he like led the league in drops last season. Or at least he was up there in the league leaders in drops. And that's fine if you're getting super heavily targeted, which you probably will be. But if he's also injured to start the year, he'll be a guy that's on free agency more than likely. And really, his role hasn't changed an insane amount. And he wasn't really a guy that did you all that much. Even late last season, when his role is exactly the same as it will be now, he didn't really do all that much for you. So not a guy I've really drafted in a ton of leagues. Rashard Matthews is the same way. He's obviously going to regress. They brought in Corey Davis. They brought in Eric Decker. There's just not enough room in that passing offense. So if you want to take him super late, do it. But he's going to need injuries in order to pay off. So not typically a guy that I've been taking in any mock drafts. finishing off this tier and then maybe moving a little bit more quickly towards these end guys because we're probably not drafting a ton of them. We have Rashard Matthews, Corey Coleman, Jordan Matthews, Mike Wallace, and Corey Davis. Already talked about Rashard Matthews. Don't know why I said his name again. Coleman's probably the only guy I could see myself drafting. He's most comparable to Odell. Like, we all know he's a freak, but he's also seems to be like a little bit injury prone. Could he be the most heavily targeted guy on the Browns? Yeah, but like, it's not going to score many touchdowns. So he's like a fine pick late because he's got some upside. So I'll make that pick sometimes. Jordan Matthews, I believe, has an injury right now, so we need to watch that because we do not draft injured players unless they're really good. And with them bringing in Alshon, with them not being, it's not like Wentz is going to be a 5,000-yard passer. I don't see huge upside for Jordan Matthews, especially if he is injured. And there's talk that Aguilar is going to push him to the slot, so not someone I'm pumped to take. Mike Wallace, not going to be drafting much of him. I know he finished as wide receiver with 22 last year, but they just brought in Jeremy Maclin. I think Wallace is he's going to score some points, but he doesn't have much upside, and I don't know. He's another guy that he's going to have some good weeks, he's going to have some zeros, so not someone I'm targeting. Corey Davis I'll have 0% of. He's going to start off slow before the injury. Now I have no idea how slow he's going to start off, but Decker's going to take touchdowns, and again, it's not a high-volume offense. The future is very bright for him, but in redraft, I would advise not going to Corey Davis. Next here, we're going to look at, we got Marquise Lee, Kenny Stills, Josh Doxson, Funchess, J.J. Nelson, and Kevin White. This tier basically rounds out like draftable, as in, I don't know why you're going below this range. I don't know how many, in 12 team, obviously, I'm talking about. Lee, I just don't see the upside. Like, I think he's a great receiver. I think that on a different team, he could be great. But if they're going to try and pound the rock, and they've already got Allen Robinson ahead of him, I think he's the clear-cut 2. But I don't think he's anything more than that. And the 2 on that team has been fine in recent years. But I really do think they shift towards a more heavy run game and just try and ride the defense in the run game. So not a pick I want to make, especially in standard. In PPR, it's okay, but not in standard. Still's the fine pick. Again, it's the Cutler risk. We have absolutely no idea what Cutler is going to be, but he was touchdown dependent last year, and I just don't know what to do with him. So there's some risk with that pick, but honestly, in this range, how much risk can a player really have? Other than, I guess, Doxson and Kevin White have some risk because of injuries, and just Kevin White forgot that he's good, I guess. But if Doxson can stay healthy, there's a world where he pushes Terrell Pryor for the 1 by the end of the season. He's been compared to A.J. Green. So I like picking Doxson late because that's what I like to do. I like to shoot for this upside. So I could actually see myself drafting Doxson, Funchess, and J.J. Nelson. Probably not anyone else in this tier, just because, like Funchess, there's a world where he pushes Kelvin Benjamin for the 1 at the end of the season. J.J. Nelson, he could push John Brown for the number 2 spot at the end of the season. So I like taking guys who have that upside, so I can see myself drafting them. It's just that typically on my teams, I'm done picking my wide receivers at this range. Like, I already have 6 of them because I love just loading up in the middle rounds after taking 1 in the top 3 rounds. So don't typically get these guys, but I'm fine with them. And then this last range is Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, Ted Ginn, Robbie Anderson, Malcolm Mitchell, and Zay Jones. I don't think I've drafted any of them in a mock draft. Maybe one of them. Lockett, I don't know. Like, you're never going to know when to start Lockett. So, like, he got, like, annihilated at the end of last season. Broken wrist, lacerated kidney, hamstring injury, and a broken fibula. Just because he's, like, a small guy, he's going to get some of these injuries. It's Baldwin, it's going to be Lacey, and it's going to be Graham. So you're never going to know. Paul Richardson showed some flashes in the playoffs. You're never going to know when to start him. So more of a DFS play there. Robert Woods, a slot receiver, but he's going to be asked to be the number 1, I guess. It's not a situation you want to be part of. Not a lot of touchdowns are going to be scored in that offense. he's just not a pick I want to make unless I'm in like a 16-team league. He's a good player. I mean, if they brought him into a team that had a good quarterback and they're missing a slot guy, like he'd be great. But he's going to be out of his element there. Ted Ginn will be on 0 of my teams. He's another GPP play because you never know when it's going to happen, but he's going to have some weeks. He's probably going to have a week of like 120 and 2 touchdowns, and he's going to win someone $1 million in the tournament. But he's not going to win you your fantasy league because you're never going to know when to start him. That week you're going to not play him. The next week he's going to get 0 when he's in your flex. So that's what Ted Ginn's going to do. Anderson has some upside. Obviously he's got a ton of risk. We have no idea what to think of him. He's got a little bit of a legal situation, but I think that's going to be fine. It's a little bit dependent upon Quincy Enunwa's health. If Enunwa's out, we need to bump up Anderson. If Enunwa's in, I'll keep him basically here. He's a guy that's fine in deeper leagues, but more of a guy just to know his name on free agency because that team's bad, so they're going to have to throw the ball a ton late. Mitchell's another guy you don't need to draft. He'll be on free agency, but just remember his name. Very risky pick just because of the amount of weapons on that team, and he's been like all these like you say, oh, they're freak injuries, but the dude needs to add some weight because he keeps getting these freak injuries that a receiver of bigger stature would just not get. So I think he needs to add some weight. We'll see how he looks in the preseason, but I think that the Patriots want him to be in that number 1 role instead of Hogan. I mean, they drafted him to be like that. So maybe towards the end of the year he can be in that role with Cooks and Edelman on 3 wide sets, with White out of the backfield, with Gronk. I mean, how many people are you going to put on Malcolm Mitchell, right? In that sort of offense, he's like the last guy you're worrying about. So he's going to have some mismatches, and Brady's kind of like looking his way when they get into the red zone. So he's not a bad pick, a little bit of upside, but I don't think you need to draft him because he's going to be available on free agency. And then Zay Jones is on this list, but I'm going to change that probably just to Anquan Bolden. This list was made before the news. Like literally the news just came out as I'm recording this. If you hadn't heard, I think I already mentioned it, but Bolden, I believe, signed with the Bills or is going to sign with the Bills, or maybe it was just a rumor. I don't really know. I just glanced at my phone. But assuming that Bolden's on the Bills, Zay Jones, you just don't draft him. I wasn't drafting him anyways. Just kind of threw him on here at 65, but you really shouldn't be in this range anyways. So don't draft him. That's finally it. Probably, what, an hour and 20, roughly? I don't know. I haven't been keeping track. But that's the end of this video. I do hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like button. If you're new here, subscribe. We're probably going to be shifting to 7 videos a week from now on. So look forward to that. But this video, finally over. Thanks for watching.